Evam bahuvidha yagna vitatat brahmano mukhe karmajan vidhitan sarvam evam gyatva vimuksyase evam bahuvidha yagna vitatat brahmano mukhe karmajan viditan sarvam evam gyatva vimuksyase evam baho vidha yagna vitat brahmano mukhe karmajan vidhitan sarvan evam gyatva vimoksyase. Somebody would like to try? Okay, word for word. Evam, thus, bahu, vidha, various kinds of yagna, sacrifices, vitataha, are spread, brahmanaha, of the Vedas, mukhe, through the mouth, karmajan, born of work, vidhi, you should know, tan, them, sarvan, all, evam, thus, gyatva, knowing, vimoksyase, you will be liberated. Translation by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. All these different types of sacrifices are approved by the Vedas, and all of them are born of different types of work. Knowing them as such, you will become liberated. So let's try to repeat translation. All these different types of sacrifices are approved by the Vedas, are approved by the Vedas, and all of them are born of different types of work. Knowing them as such, you will become liberated. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Different types of sacrifices, as discussed above, are mentioned in the Vedas to suit the different types of worker. Because men are so deeply absorbed in the bodily concept, these sacrifices are so arranged that one can work either by the body, with the mind or with the intelligence. What are the three things? With the body, mind, intelligence. Three ways to work. You can work with your body, you can work with your mind, or you can work with your intelligence. We'll see how. But all of them are recommended for ultimately bringing about liberation from the body. This is confirmed by the Lord herewith from His own mouth. Okay, we'll do 33 also. I'll just read the Sanskrit and then we'll go over the translation. Shreyandra Vayama Yajna Yajnaj Yagnaj Jnana Yagna Parantapa Sarvam Karmakalayam Partha Jnana Jnanam Parasamarpayate. Translation. O chastiser of the enemy, the sacrifice performed in knowledge is better than the mere sacrifice of material possessions. After all, O son of Pritha, all sacrifices of work culminate in transcendental knowledge. Purport. The purpose of all sacrifice is to arrive at the status of complete knowledge, then to gain release from material miseries, and ultimately to engage in the loving transcendental service to the Supreme Lord in Krishna consciousness. Nonetheless, there is a mystery about these different activities. There's a mystery about them, of sacrifices. And one should know this mystery. What does a mystery mean? Mysterious. There's something not clear about it. Doesn't look like what it is. We're going to see how. Sacrifices sometimes take different forms according to the particular faith of the performer. Takes different forms according to the particular faith of the performer. When one's faith reaches the stage of transcendental knowledge, the performer of the sacrifice should be considered more advanced than those who simply sacrifice material possessions without such knowledge. For without attachment of knowledge, sacrifice remains on the material platform and bestows no spiritual benefit. Real knowledge culminates in Krishna consciousness, the highest stage of transcendental knowledge. Without the elevation of knowledge, sacrifices are simply material activities. When, however, they are elevated to the level of transcendental knowledge, all such activities enter onto the spiritual platform. Depending on the differences in consciousness, sacrificial activities are sometimes called karma kanda, fruitive activities, and sometimes jnana kanda, knowledge in the pursuit of truth. And it is better when the end is knowledge. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shiyuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavanamusha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Tam Tam Prachakshadivam Sadvaitam Sarvadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakana Mishta Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschacha Desatari Pancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvyeva Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, we are coming towards the end of all these sacrificial explanations, and repeatedly we hearing about this principle of yajna. Generally, when we first started, the first notion was that yajna just means to do some kind of activity. The literal explanation is more like do some kind of activity for the pleasure of the Lord, or then it generally as an inclination, something done for God. But the purpose behind it, we see, is really variegated. It's variegated to different degrees depending on what the person wants. If the person wants fruitive activities, what kind of yajna would he do? Karma kand, karma. If he wants jnana, then jnana kand. And then we're seeing that the culmination of both of them, Prabhupada is repeatedly bringing out this point, that it must ultimately lead you to the highest level. He said it today also. The highest level of bhakti or devotion to Krishna. So we don't want to miss that point. As much as these activities are connected to Krishna, as much as it is Vedic, it's coming from the Vedas, still it is not the highest level that one can achieve through this. There's still something very higher, something more meaningful to life, rather than just following some karma section or some dhyana section to find inner fulfillment. So ultimately the purpose of yajna wants to bring us to that point of finding some internal satisfaction, either through karma or through jnana. But we see that both of those, as we've been learning, yajna tat karma no netra lokayam karma bandhana yadatam karma konteya moksha sangam samachara. It is binding. If work is done and it's not connected to Krishna or Vishnu, it is binding. So as nice as it looks, karma, no, I'm offering it to Vishnu, what is the problem? It's still binding. And today's verse is a summation of that. It's a summary of all that Krishna has been explaining. And we're going to see how just now. We're going to go over some of the points that Krishna has been making. So the essential principle is whatever is for the pleasure, is for our pleasure, is first offered to Krishna, and then we take it for our pleasure. So first offer it to a supreme, to a higher level, and then you accept it. And this is Vedic. But we saying you're still the center of you're still part of the equation. Is there a way to offer something to get really deep satisfaction? Because ultimately the goal is pleasure. Can I get satisfaction? Feel some deeper sort of connection without keeping myself as part of the equation, just doing it in a selfless way. And what will that result yield? So in 423 we've been reading. You can open to 423, 23rd verse. I'll just read the translation. The work of a man who is unattached to the modes of material nature and who is fully situated in transcendental knowledge merges entirely in true transcendence. So we're trying to reach this level of transcendence. That is the point we're trying to reach. And that is the point that Krishna is trying to educate Arjuna to. Because Arjuna is actually trying to find out, Krishna, what am I supposed to be doing? You telling me all this is good, but now it's, direct me precisely. What am I supposed to be doing? So we're coming to that point. So to act in the mode of yajna. To act in the mode of yajna means to understand that these things, the Isyavasa principle, that actually there's a proprietor to all of this. And if I don't acknowledge him, I'm actually stealing. It's adharmic. I'm not acknowledging the owner of all these things. So I should acknowledge the owner. So we want to come to that point. So work should be done as a sacrifice. Like we said in 3.9. Yagyatat karmano netra. We quoted that verse just now. So work should be done as a sacrifice. Without that, it's going to cause bondage. So we don't want to be bound. We want to be free, but we still want to enjoy. How do we do that? Do karma kand. Karma kand is Vedic enjoyment, Vedic sense gratification. It's still sense gratification, but it's Vedic. So is there a higher level? Oh yeah, there is a higher level. Krishna was speaking about that. Therefore, son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties. For this satisfaction, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction. Then we'll say, but how am I going to be happy? If I don't offer to him, how am I going to be happy? And in that way, you will always remain free from bondage. So the bondage is the thing that's keeping you tied. And you feeling that this is the thing that's giving you happiness. But actually, if you recognize him, then you can transcend that. So Prabhupada starts the translation here by saying, all these different types of sacrifices, this is today's verse in the translation, all these different types of sacrifices are approved by the Vedas. So it's Vedic. And all of them are born of different types of work. Knowing them as such, you will become liberated. So we're going to see how that is now. So what we're going to do quickly, we're going to have a quick revision of what is the different types of yajnas that we've learned so far. And I need 2 volunteers. One to reference it, maybe one from the ladies' side and one from the men's side. One to reference and one to read. So I think my projector went off. Let's see if we can start him up quickly. Okay, so we need 2 volunteers. Who from the men's side? Somebody to read? Somebody? Okay, somebody? Yeah. And from the ladies' side, somebody? Just to read, one referencing mean we will go over, we will see the reference on the, is it switched off?
It is gone off.
Yeah, now it's starting. Okay, there's the noise. Okay, it's working here. It's working. Okay, it's working. We can sit. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So we'll be referencing now, just to give a quick background of what we've been learning so far and what Krishna's points are. Okay. And yeah. So if we're reading a verse, it will come as 4.25 A and B. So A and B is the first line and the second line of the sloka. So first line, like Sarva Dharman Parityaja, that's A. Mam Ekam Saranam Raja, that's B. Aham Tom Sarva Pavevyu, that's C. And the last line will be D, like that. Okay? Alright, so who wants to read? You want to read? Okay. Okay, literal sacrifice, Nishkam Karma Yoga. So that was the first idea that we came across of yajna, to do some offering. Now the idea of Nishkam Karma Yoga is a very elevated idea. So therefore Krishna explained subsidiary ideas and is coming back to it. So Nishkam Karma Yoga is doing work without attachment to the results and without just doing it as a duty. Just as a duty, no reward to it, no bondage, no results. Just as a duty, because I'm obligated to do it. I feel I should, just like as you take care of your family, but this is in connecting with Krishna. Alright, second one. Yes. And thereafter? Yeah. Right. So that AB is first line and second line of 425. So you can check your books also. 425, Krishna was speaking about Karma Yoga. So who volunteered to read from the lady side? Somebody? We need a volunteer. Okay. It's not difficult. Just read the translation. If you're finding it too difficult, just read the translation of 425. Somebody?
Some yogis perfectly worship the demigods by offering different sacrifices to them.
Right.
And some of them offer sacrifices in the fire.
Yes. So it was connected to the demigods, and this is how we were doing yajna connected to the demigods. So we learned about that's one way. You please the demigods, you get your reward. Okay, next one. Next type of sacrifice. Next one. Yes. So in that 425, this C and D line, the third and fourth verse, part of the sloka, it's dealing with the Jnana yogis and how they perform sacrifice. Okay, so we learned about that. Okay, next one. Next one.
Restraining the senses.
Right. Right. So in 426 then, A and B, we heard about the brahmacharis and how they by the hearing process. Yes, 26. Yeah. Read the translation. I think it will be easier then. The first part, A and B. Okay, read first two lines, first part of it.
Some, the unadulterated brahmacharis,
Mm.
sacrifice the hearing process and the senses in the fire of mental control.
Okay. So, yeah. Carry on.
And others, the regulated householders, sacrifice the objects of the senses in the fire of the senses.
Okay, so that was the second part. So the first part then, the brahmacharis by hearing, we learned that that's how they do sacrifice. So what we're doing is a quick revision of all the sacrifices we heard. Because the verse started by saying different kinds. So what are the different kinds we're learning about? Okay, the next one. Go ahead.
Restraining the senses, remaining indifferent to the action of the senses, grihastha brahmachari.
Yes, so we heard about that in C and D. They also, you get a grihastha is also a brahmachari, and this is how they do sacrifice. Okay, the next one.
Restraining the senses and jnana yoga.
Yeah, so in 427 we heard about restraining the senses and pranayam. You remember we showed those videos. I think I did that one. We showed those videos on breathing, Patanjali. You remember that one? So that's how the Jnana Yoga is also again the Jnana. Okay, next one.
Practice of Siva vow. Dharma, Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga.
So 428 we heard about these different yoga also, the different karma and jnana also. Okay, you want to read 428 please?
Having accepted strict vows, some become enlightened by sacrificing the possessions and others by performing severe austerities. By practicing the yoga of eightfold mysticism or by studying the Vedas to enhance the transcendental knowledge.
Right, so by performing Ashtanga Yoga, the Eightfold Process of Mysticism, they also achieve some higher level. It's also a form of sacrifice that we learnt. Okay, the next one, Prabhu.
Controlling the breath. Yoga 4.29 ECT.
Right, so that whole verse then is dealing about breath control. Breath control, what's the Sanskrit terminology? Pranayam. So we learnt about that again. Okay, the next one.
Restraining
Restraining
eating.
eating.
Yoga
Yes.
429
Okay, 429. So it's a big verse there. We're about restraint by eating. That's a form as a sacrifice. So we learned about that. Okay. Yeah. Done. Okay. So this is like a summary of the different sacrifices we heard of. So what's the point of all of this? We want to get to the point of bhakti. right? The Bhagavad Gita is about bhakti. So we want to get to the point of how we can connect all this to Krishna. So in the purport there, Prabhupada says, different types of sacrifices as we discussed just now above, are mentioned in the Vedas. So the Vedas gave us so many different kinds of, like we saw there just now, right? All of that are mentioned in the Vedas. Why? To suit the different types of worker. So everybody has a different kind of desire. Not everybody is inclined to Gyan, and not everybody is inclined to karma. But where is this going? Is there a higher purpose that can be achieved? Because men are so deeply absorbed in the bodily concept, these sacrifices are so arranged that one can work either with the body, with the mind, or with the intelligence. 3 ways you can offer sacrifice. So if you're offering sacrifice with the body, what is that called? Karma Yoga. If you're offering with the mind, Jnana Yoga. And if you're offering with the intelligence, Buddhi Yoga. Yes. And Buddhi Yoga is synonymous to the aspect of bhakti. That you are offering, you're trying to work out what is the higher level of that I can offer surrender my life to, that I can serve Krishna with. The aspect that I can serve Krishna with. Prabhupada goes on. But all of them are recommended for ultimately bringing about liberation from the body. All of these things are nice. They're offering sacrifice. They're yogic. They're Vedic. But what is the central point of all of this? It's connected to the body. That's the point that they're missing. You're still connected to the body. So is there a way then to do sacrifice and not be connected to the body? Aha! That would be interesting. So let's see. This is confirmed by the Lord herewith from His own mouth. Then in 433, which is the other verse we're doing today, translation, O chastiser of the enemy, the sacrifice performed in knowledge is better than the mere sacrifice of material possessions. Dravya yagya, to offer your possessions. One may feel, well, I'm offering something, right? I'm offering my possessions. But what happens when you give something? Usually on a subtle level you get proud. I gave something, whatever it is. The pauper is even proud of his penny, right? So to give something means, oh, I did something. So you still become the center. So is there a yagya that you can perform where you're not the center and you still please the Lord? That's the point I'm repeatedly saying. That's the point we want to come to. Prabhupada goes on. After all, O Sant of Brita, this is still the translation, all sacrifices of work culminate in transcendental knowledge. That's what we want to get to. How can I get transcendental knowledge? By doing yagya. And transcendental knowledge means knowledge of the Supreme, knowledge of Krishna, knowledge that will free me from bondage, knowledge that will not bind me without any fruitive results to myself, and please Krishna at the same time. Purport. The purpose of all sacrifices is to arrive at the status of complete knowledge. We're getting somewhere here now. The purpose of sacrifices is to come to this point of complete knowledge. Right now the knowledge is partial. It's not complete. So what is complete knowledge then? Let's see. Then to gain release from material miseries. Second level. You come to complete knowledge. Second level, to gain release from material miseries. Third level. And ultimately to engage in the loving transcendental service of the Supreme Lord in Krishna consciousness. Third level. 3 levels are discussed there in the purport. So Prabhupada is bringing us to this point through these purports. Nonetheless, there is a mystery because we still can't figure it out, right? We've seen how many different types of yagya. it's still not so easy that just to surrender to Krishna. Otherwise Bhagavad Gita would be over right in the first chapter. But it's still not an easy task, because we are here to learn a lesson in the material world. We are here to learn the lesson. So it's not easy, it's a mystery. Rahasyam etaduttamam bhakta sime sakachati. Rahasyam etaduttamam. It's a great secret, and only my devotee. If you're my devotee, then you can understand this. Let's read further. All these different activities of sacrifice, and one should know this mystery. Prabhupada said one should know this mystery. So we're trying to learn about this. What is this mystery? Sacrifices sometimes take different forms according to the particular faith. Oh, there's an aspect here now. Faith has come into the equation. Before, when you do karma kanda, you didn't need faith. You just needed to have the proper activity. You need to have the proper know the proper procedures. You didn't have to be obliged to the demigods or anything. You just do it and you get. It's like a bank exchange. Do it and you get your reward. But now there's an aspect of faith. Oh, sweets. In the Bhakti Shastri classes, if the mobile goes off, everybody gets sweets, and everybody has two hands. Not like Laddu Gopal, only one hand. Okay. Right. When one's faith reaches a stage of transcendental knowledge, oh, now we're getting somewhere. Now when your faith reaches the level of transcendental knowledge, so it's not ordinary, it's not jnana anymore, it's higher knowledge. What happens then? The performer of sacrifices should be considered more advanced than those who are simply doing sacrifice for material possessions. So we come to quite a high level now of yajna, but we're still not too clear yet, right? We're going to see. Without such knowledge, for without attachment of knowledge, sacrifices remain on the material platform.
Without attainment. Without attainment, not attachment.
You're not attached. Yeah, that's still there, but you still have the body, right? We still haven't reached transcendental stage. We're hearing about it now. So we want to get to that stage. Do yajna, but transcendental yajna? What's this? You're going to hear. Transcendental yajna. This remains beyond the material platform and bestows no spiritual benefit. Material things, right? You don't get spiritual benefit from material things. So yajna is not just an activity, it's also a principle. There's a deep principle behind yajna of offering. So we're going to see quickly how this is a principle. So in the Vedic scriptures, we read this, we know this already, but we're just gonna revise it. How it's a principle. The aspect of offering. Why should we offer? We learned that. So the aspect of offering. We're gonna see, yeah? Okay, I'm just setting it up.
What is yajna? You may think of yajna.
So what is yajna? We're going to go over this quickly and see now.
As fire sacrifice or some other austere ritual. However,
okay, I'll put it quickly.
What is yajna? You may think of yajna as fire sacrifice or some other austere ritual. However, while ritual does constitute one part of yajna, yajna as a concept has much broader implications.
So it has deeper implications. It's a principle. It's not just offering a sacrifice, like we learned about so many different types of yajna. We saw the list, right?
According to the Vedas, every action has a reason and a resulting effect, the latter being both on the physical body and on the mind.
So physical body and on the mind. Whatever you do, you get reactions on this. So thinking that you're doing yajna, there's no bondage, is a mistake. You're gonna get reaction, right? We've heard of this. We've read this also, right?
It is necessary to free the mind from the cycle of action and attachment, and is the goal of Karma Yoga. How does yajna tie in?
So how does yajna tie into the whole picture? We're going to see that.
It is one of the methods by which vasanas are overcome.
In vasanas are impurities. So if you want to go take or remove impurities, we read that also before. To purify oneself, you do yajna.
Yajna comes from the Sanskrit verbal root yaj, meaning benevolent sacrifice, and is action to be done with a spirit of self-sacrifice, not motivated by attachment to the results.
So it should be motivated by self-sacrifice. That is the higher principle. You are not in the center. So that's the principle we're coming to, that we're hearing about. So let's just see some yogic activity also. Now that's coming to that. Okay, this one. So this is a typical karma kanda yajna that we've read about, we've heard about. Now we can see firsthand also how this is how it's set up.
This is
setting the whole thing up. He's doing his mudras. These mudras we also do as devotees, as pujaris, we also do mudras. They're part of the purification process. See, now is lighting the fire. In the ancient the Vedic Brahmins were so pure, they could light fire just by mantra. Now we use matches. Prabhupada was in Kumbh Mela, and it was winter time, and the pujari was trying to light the matches to do the arti, and it was strike, and it was going off, strike, and it was going off. And Prabhupada says, this is not the yajna for this age. Sankirtan yajna. So okay, I think you get the idea. Okay, now this is karma kanda that we've been hearing about, right? Now let's see the jnana kanda, and that we're going to hear directly from Prabhupada. We're going to see this jnana in full effect.
What is yajna?
Okay, we did that. Okay. Now listen carefully. Prabhupada, you saw the translation there. Here is God. Why you don't accept? So Prabhupada is speaking to a group of theologians, people who study religion. So they're jnanis, and he's speaking to them and see why you don't accept. Here is God, like Prabhupada said in the translation. There's so many different parts of yajna, so many different aspects of it. Why? Because ultimately we all have our individual desires. But when a devotee comes along and he says, here's Krishna, he's giving the ultimate level, like he said in the purport, the highest level. Let's see how Prabhupada deals with these jnanis. So we saw karma, let's see jnana.
So if you are theologians, then you must know what is God.
So Prabhupada starts. He says, if you are theologians, then you must know what is God. This is the jnani way now, right? They're trying to use the mind and intelligence to figure out the whole thing. So if you're a theologian, that means you know what is God. So let's see how they reply.
And abide by them.
And abide by His rules. He doesn't just say you should know God. What does he say? You should abide by His rules. Hear that again. Hear it again.
So if you are theologians, then you must know what is God and abide by them.
And abide by His orders. You see the second part? You have to abide. If you're going to know, if you just say, no, we know what is God, that's not good enough. You have to be a devotee. You have to abide by what God wants you to do.
What do you think, Dr. Judah?
So Prabhupada asks this one doctor there, Dr. Judah,
What do you think, this proposition?
Yes, well, I think you're quite right. I think that it is certainly in our day and age, many of us don't really know God.
Then he's not theologist. He is theosophic.
so theosophist. Theosophy is the study of knowing about God, not knowing God. You see the difference? It's very subtle. Theology is the study of God, of Krishna. We are practicing a theology. But if you go to a university, that is theosophy. That's why Prabhupada, that's why I mentioned to you, hear what Prabhupada said in the beginning. He said, if you are theologians, you should know about God and abide by what He's saying, and abide by His order. If you don't abide by His order, that's just theosophy. You know something, you heard something, oh, my Nani told me something, you know, my Aja told me something. They can be as truth also, you know, historical truth. But that doesn't mean you know God. That's why it's a very distinct point Prabhupada is making here.
We know about God, but we do not know God. I would agree.
That is theosophy.
That is theosophy. You only know about God. You know God did this, Krishna ran around, Krishna stole butter. You know all the pastimes. But knowing the pastimes is not knowing Krishna. Very big difference. That's why it's mysterious. Remember in the purport, Prabhupada said mysterious. That is not knowing Krishna.
Theosophy is they're thinking there is something superior. But who is that superior? They're searching.
See, they are searching. Who is that supreme? They are searching out. But they don't know who it is. But when the devotee explains it and expresses it, then you don't want to accept it. Then you go on a jnana way. But if you accept it, like Prabhupada said, here is Krishna. Why don't you accept? You'll hear him say that now. You don't know who's God. I'm telling you who's God based on the Vedas. Why don't you accept it? But a jnani won't, because a jnani means he has to stretch his mind and he has to have some strong, very complicated things. Then he's satisfied with that. If you just say, no, this little child, this little bluish boy, this is God. Hey, don't tell me bacha stories, This is not God. I want to see this, I want to experience the Supreme Brahman. How can this little boy be God? Indra made that mistake. Brahma made that mistake. It's not easy, it's mysterious.
The same thing. A boy, he knows I have a father. But who is my father? He doesn't know. And then you have to ask the mother.
So who is my father? He doesn't know. That you have to ask the mother. And mother is Vedas.
Alone he cannot understand.
Alone you cannot understand. These jnanis and they're going on themselves because they are the center of it. Alone you cannot understand. So what does that mean? You have to ask somebody, right? So who are you going to ask? Tat vidi panipatena pariprashnena sevaya. When is that verse coming? When is it coming? Tomorrow. Tomorrow's verse. It's the next verse.
So our proposition is that if you do not know God.
So the devotee is speaking. He's saying, our proposition to you is, you're a jnani, you don't know who is God, you don't know what's the higher level, what's the higher aspect. Here I am expressing it to you on basis of scripture, Vedas. Why don't you accept it?
And here is God, Krishna.
Here's God, Krishna. You're looking for Him, but you don't know it. Now, as a devotee expressing it and giving it,
Why don't you accept it?
why don't you accept it? It sounds simple. Yeah, I should just accept it. But a jnani will not just accept it. Therefore, Arjuna is also saying then how to find, like Prabhupada said there, how to know this? You have to go through the process. You have to find out from somebody who knows. And who is that person? Is the devotee. So, just as there's karma kanda, there's jnana kanda, these all are different forms of yajna. So what is the yajna that the devotee does? Yeah? Sankirtan yajna. Krishna vana tusa Krishna. Yeah? Carry on. Sangopangasa parshadam. Yajna sankirtana prayir. Yajantihi sumed saha. You want to read the translation?
Translation: in the age of Kali, intelligent person performs congregational chanting to worship the incarnation of Godhead, confusing the remaining of Krishna.
Yes. So you remember, Prabhupada was mentioning in the purport, you use your intelligence, you use your mind. This is using intelligence. So devotees also do yajna. What kind of yajna they're doing? Sankirtan yajna. So in all over the world, all countries in the world, this is happening. Devotees are going on the streets and they're doing yajna. This is a busy town. I don't know where it was. Maybe some of you recognize the buildings. And they are devotees. They are doing yajna. Do you see any fire? Do you see any, like what we showed you, do you see any pandit? No. How is this yajna? Do you see any jnana, any books, any philosophy? No. But according to Bhagavatam, this is the yajna. This is the highest yajna. So this is the point we want to come to. We want to come to the point, we're already there as devotees, but when we're preaching to people, people may say, oh well, you people are not scholars and you don't do big activity, but we work for Krishna. Our center of our lives is Krishna. Everything around us is Krishna. Karishnam vachanam taba. I'll just do what you want, Krishna. Krishna, you want me to distribute books? Okay. You want me to do yajna, sankirtan, chanting, street chanting? Yes. You want me to do deity worship? Yes. And the center of it is Krishna. By Krishna being the center, the living entity gets the highest pleasure because Krishna is pleased. And therefore you don't have to worry about putting yajna, doing yajna. You don't have to worry about jnana. You don't have to worry about all that. This is the highest yajna. So devotees are doing it according to Shastra. So this is the point we want to come to. And this is the point where Arjuna is at. Because he's saying, now what do I do from here? How do I get to this stage? And Krishna is saying, well, you have to find out from somebody who knows the truth. Tatvataha. You have to find out from somebody who knows. And that's tomorrow's verse. So we'll stop there. Any comments or questions from anybody? Yes, there's the mic.
Hare Krishna, Ratheem Krishna Prabhu. It's a beautiful presentation. So wonderfully presented.